In a world of fake news, this is news you can trust. You're listening to the Babylon Bee, the only inerrant news source. Here are your infallible hosts, Kyle Mann and Ethan Nicolle.
I'm Kyle Mann.
And this is Ethan Nicolle.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Coming
Second guy.
We're like the Kool-Aid man, busting through a wall, except instead of Kool-Aid...
Morbidly obese and full of juice.
Instead of Kool-Aid, we are bringing you the week's news.
Kind of.
We're bringing an audio format.
The week's commentary, meaningless commentary on the news that really has nothing to do with anything, just us trying to entertain ourselves.
Yes. So you get to listen in while a couple of guys hang out. We're on our third or fourth coffee.
In our air-conditioned studio.
And
not really.
We are broadcasting live, but not actually live, from a 150-degree garage in Southern California.
Yes, we have a garage that we record in, and today is like a 100-degree day, and the garage is closed, and we're recording from... So feel sorry for us. This is our white privilege. We're crying because we don't have an air-conditioned studio to record from.
It's not actually that hot if you can get the recording done before 5 a.m.
Yeah. But
we're a little behind.
Well, and we just started, so we just turned the fan off, so it's slowly going to get more and more. It's going to like, you know how coldness gets to your bones? This is where like the hot meltiness, like your flesh starts to feel like a sack of raw chicken.
Yeah, so we're starting out very energetic, and then as the podcast goes on, you're just going to hear us slowly starting
melting. We could die by the end. You never know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
how was your week, Kyle? You've been gone a lot.
Yeah. So we've been on vacation, and it's been a great time. But
by we you mean you, not me.
No,
I've not been.
But you will be.
Yeah.
So we just concluded kind of a couple of weeks of various vacations. We were in the desert, then we were in the mountains, then we were at the beach.
Man,
which is a
that's white privilege right there. Multiple vacations in like
that's
span of a couple of weeks.
That's California privilege. That's what's great about. I still think California is like the most amazing place on the planet.
It is pretty amazing,
even though some people are trying to ruin it.
Except for the price. It's really just the prices.
Yeah,
and some of the people suck.
Yeah. So. We did all that, but then it culminated with a very on-brand conclusion to my vacation, and that was on Saturday night, me and my wife went to the 5 Iron Frenzy concert.
Oh, this episode brought to you by 5 Iron Frenzy. They're back. Actually, it's not.
They're not really back, but yeah.
Well, they played a show.
They do this sporadic. So anyone who doesn't know, 5 Iron Frenzy is a Christian ska band.
Yes.
Lest you think Christian ska is extinct. It is not.
It's still holding on.
It's holding on for dear life. I mean, it's kind of on life support, and the family members are gathered around Christian ska holding hands.
Nice.
And kind of saying their last goodbyes.
Everybody at this concert had hired a babysitter, probably?
It was...
grandparents?
Okay, so I saw 5 Iron Frenzy at the same venue like 20 years ago.
Okay.
When I was in junior high. And then I saw them again, a few years after that. And so... But as we go, the concert goers are aging. And so now it's kind of sad. It's like all these guys who are maybe 40, 45, wearing Converse.
They all work in IT and stuff now?
Yeah, and the crowd was like almost so dead.
No skanking?
Skanking? There was skank. There was kind of a skank pit right in the middle.
Okay.
Everyone was skanking, doing a little bit of moshing,
Huh.
But it was kind of low energy. And I wasn't over in the pit. I was kind of off to the side, and I was right up front on the gate, and I was I was doing the skanking.
Yeah.
And people around me were kind of glaring at me, like, "Why are you moving?"
Where are the chairs here?
So
we're old.
It was. I was kind of depressed, but then I realized like I'm aging too. So
yeah, you're on the young end of 5 Iron fans, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I probably.
That's my guess. I don't know.
I was one of the younger people there.
They were huge for me and my group of friends because I was in multiple bands. I was actually in a band that was pretty much attempting to be a 5 Iron Frenzy ripoff. It was a ska band, and it was called the 12 Multicolored Frozen Christian Rubber Chickens.
Wow.
And they could never find a bass player, so they had me play bass, and I had a rubber chicken on a football helmet and like a Lone Ranger mask and a cape and like knee pads. And so I played this disguised character named Chicken X, and I played bass in this band.
That's kind of always the qualification for a bassist, right? Like you exist.
You just barely exist, yeah.
So you're the bassist.
Yeah, we loved the 5 Iron Frenzy. My cohort that was in the band, I was in like multiple bands, and he was in almost all of them with me. My friend Anthony was like Reese Roper obsessed, and we finally got to play a show with them at one point. We played with Roper, his band Roper.
Yeah.
They played in our hometown, and it was a really awkward moment. He finally got to meet Reese Roper, and they were just kind of this casual conversation. And our drummer walks up and he goes, "Hey, man, he's like obsessed with you." And then walks by.
No.
You didn't even think about how like awkward that made the whole thing. Ruined the moment.
I do like how, Ethan, you had to one-up me. Because I'm sitting here like, I'm all excited that I got to go see 500. You're like, oh yeah, I played with 500.
I still can't remember but it's Roper. Does that really count?
Yeah.
Roper's
really.
like him covering covering pop country songs.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have to do a whole 5 Iron show at some point.
Yeah, we do. We do need to. Christian ska. I said on Twitter this morning, I'm gonna be the guy who brings Christian ska back. Like if you ever saw La La Land,
and I'm gonna stop you.
Ryan Gosling was like trying to bring jazz back, and I'm gonna save jazz.
Oh yeah,
and that was his thing in La La Land. So that's me, but for Christian ska.
Okay.
Okay, we have one other note before we get into this week's stories, and that's an astute Twitter follower pointed out to us that bad submission we read about Kavanaugh.
Yeah, back in episode 4 when we had Frank Fleming on, we were reading strange headlines, and it was the first one we read.
And the bad submission we read was...
It confused all of us, even Frank.
I still can't even read it without cracking up. Judge Kavanaugh kicks pregnant woman in her stomach multiple times over a period of weeks. One day he gives it his all. Now screaming at her, he starts crying and is crushing her chest with his weight. And it's so bad. And then a Twitter follower said, "Oh." He's like, it took me a while, but I figured out it's Kavanaugh's mom.
Yeah, it's talking about his birth.
It's talking about he kicked the pregnant woman
from inside, and then he bursts out crying because he gives it his all,
and he's crushing.
But he's crushing her with his chest with his weight. Must be a heavy baby. That part really throws you off.
You know, it's a good joke. You know, it's a good joke when it takes you 9 months to understand.
Well, I felt like that maybe in this case, this joke, it actually makes it really profound that it took about 9 months to get the punchline.
It took that while
it's about
to develop.
Yeah. It's the most pro-life joke ever written.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. So that joke actually was going around quite a bit during the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings.
That he abused his mom?
Yeah,
as a baby?
Like people would say, oh, he, new scandal, Kavanaugh was... with a naked woman, like, I don't know, it was all those kinds of jokes.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And, yeah. So this is something where they were kind of making the same joke everyone else was, but in a really, really convoluted way. So we apologize. We semi-apologize.
Yeah, because we didn't get it.
But it doesn't make it any, I don't know if it makes it better, but now we understand.
Yeah, now we get it.
The universe is right again for a little while.
All right, let's do our weekly stories.
Every week there are stories. These are some of them.
Our first story this week: there's new employment opportunities for Portland Antifa.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, so the military was so impressed with Antifa's violence that they dropped Portland Antifa off in hostile ISIS territory to continue doling out justice.
That's great. That's great to hear.
I'm glad that,
they're doing the Lord's work out there on the streets of Portland.
Our young men can be proud and serve their country off in the Middle East. Well, that's just great.
I like the idea of them just like waking up, like they're in a helicopter and then they just get dropped.
Yeah.
What you've done is great. And there's like a loud chopper in the background. They're like, good job, son. And then they just drop it like, where are we? What are we doing?
Just keep doing what you were doing.
Keep doing what you're doing, but now you're in hostile ISIS territory.
So this story, again, we're on a little bit of a delay because of the recording schedule, but this should still be relatively fresh when you hear this. So there was a journalist in Portland who got beat up by ISIS.
Yeah, and you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was not a good situation. Did I say beat up by ISIS? I meant beat up by
ISIS.
Beat up by Antifa.
Antifa. I kept messing that up when I was writing this. I kept messing up and switching Antifa and ISIS.
Oh, really? Maybe there's some commentary there. The similarity.
They're kind of like diet ISIS.
ISIS diet.
ISIS light.
ISIS zero.
Yeah.
0 calorie.
Well, yeah, one thing I forgot to leave out of here was that they were going to like be going into hostile ISIS territory with like bike locks and what are their other weapons they like to use?
Yeah, milkshakes.
Oh yeah, I did put in the vegan coconut milkshake because that was like specifically what the New York Times article.
Oh yeah,
Like listed all these weapons. It's like batons, mace, knives, and then it said vegan coconut milkshakes.
And they actually call out that they're vegan.
They're vegan and they're coconut flavored.
I saw they were passing around. They like when the Antifa organizes these protests, they like pass around. This is the approved recipe that we're going to use. Mm-hmm. Did you see that?
Yeah, for their milkshakes.
Yeah, like this is the recipe.
There was something going around, and I don't know, something about whether or not they had some like chemical in the milkshakes or something.
Well, yeah, I think that was a little different. But someone was saying the police were saying that they were adding cement.
Oh yeah,
to the milkshakes.
That's so you hit a person with a milkshake and they suddenly immediately freeze up like a Batman bad guy's weapon, like instant cement.
Yeah, and then
like Wile E. Coyote,
and then you have to say like a pun, like just chill out, you know.
Yeah. Or
freeze.
Yeah, those are all icy ones. Those don't make as much. Yeah.
Hey, it makes sense.
Kind of. Yeah.
I do like the idea that you're going out in order specifically to commit violence against people.
Yeah.
And you're really concerned about the milkshake being
vegan. Like, yeah, that's what I imagine. Like the conversation they're having. Like, hey, it might be cheaper just to do some 2% and just some powdered stuff from Costco. Like, what the heck are you, man? Do you even stand for anything?
Yeah, I mean, where does this milkshake thing come from? Like,
yeah.
Can you just throw anything like milk or like why does it have to be milkshake?
Suddenly milkshake? I don't know.
It sticks in a certain way, or I mean, I don't get it. Yeah. I don't get it. We should try it. Let's go milkshakes.
It is cheaper. I was thinking maybe guacamole, but that'd be expensive.
Ooh, yeah, that would be an expensive protest.
Yeah,
32 ounces of guacamole.
Be way more vegan though.
32 ounces of guacamole would be like a $200 protest. You have to really hate the person in order to guac them.
One criticism that always comes up when you talk about Antifa is you have to talk about Proud Boys and the alt-right and everything equally, otherwise you're a jerk.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those guys are jerks too. So there you go.
There. We should just have a pre-recorded disclaimer.
Also, Antifa and the Proud Boys are the Proud Boys and the alt-right and all those other guys are jerks too.
I just want to say that there's good people on all sides.
Whoa, Kyle, whoa. I just want to say there's evil people
on
all sides.
Everybody's evil.
Wait, you can't say that. You have to pick a side.
Yeah. So anyway, we're now when I think Ethan wrote this article and photoshopped it and stuff. And I think when he pitched it, I was like, is ISIS still a thing? And I had to
they're pretty messed. Yeah, they're pretty like wiped out.
They're pretty much gone, but the jokes still work.
Well, apparently they're like they're apparently like in a lot of underground cells now. Like they still exist, but they're much more hidden and they're not as like. So I worked that in the story that they were in suspected areas that they could be. Anytime they crop up, we got Antifa there to take them out with their bike locks.
And that's why we always have to be careful with our satire to get the facts right, because there's always going to be some jerk in the comments.
Yep.
Who says actually.
Yeah, I feel like I could go off on Antifa. There's something about it because I'm from Portland. And it just drives me crazy. The attitude, the complete hypocrisy of it all. I don't know. Whatever.
It's just crazy to me that they've kind of like some of those videos you see. It seems like they've taken over the city.
Yeah.
Just
yeah. And the bizarre thing that the mayor isn't really doing much about it, and the police seem to be kind of standing off to the side. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's weird.
It's very strange.
That's Portland. That's just Portland.
Just Portland for you.
All right, let's move on to our next story. We have an opinion piece that ran this week.
An op-ed?
It's an op-ed written by a fictional character, and he has some really astute words of wisdom for us. He says, Christians should be more like Jesus, who was loved by everybody and never divisive.
That's some wisdom right there.
That is indeed some wisdom.
Now, is this at all in response to the fake Christian hashtag that came out? It was like on Twitter for a day?
Yeah, I believe so.
There was a full day where Twitter was just going straight Christian hate for like just a mad, like Tasmanian devil tornado.
Yeah. So what was the bulk? What were the bulk of the complaints about Christians on the fake Christian hashtag?
Most of it was linked to what was going on at the border.
Okay.
And they had this image of, I'm like blanking out on the vice president's name, Mike Pence. He's standing there looking
Bob
at a fence,
Dole.
and there's all these people in the fence. It's very crowded. And I've found it very interesting. People I've noticed on Twitter, Mike Pence just kind of, he never says a lot, and he's just this quiet guy in the background. Like, you just kind of see him every once in a while. Like, my analogy is he's kind of like John Locke from the first episode of Lost.
He just stands
Just kind of cuts to this old guy every once in a while. And you're like, what's up with this old guy over
He's
there?
got an orange in his mouth.
Orange smile. Yeah, he just smiles with an orange in his mouth. But he doesn't really do anything.
But everybody's
it'd be
got all
like-
these theories.
Yeah, like
about
if you
him.
watched it with somebody, and if they were like, that guy's Hitler, and he wants to kill babies, and he's a murderer, and then it's like, how do you get all that? He's just smiling at the camera for a minute.
Yeah.
But so yeah, in fact, there's that photo of him looking at a fence with all these people in it, and then it's juxtaposed with a picture of, like, I think it's Himmler and a concentration camp, as if because they're both standing in kind of the same position, and there's a fence there, and there's people behind it, makes it the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Alyssa Milano, our favorite A-list actor, was shared that.
Yeah, it was very popular. It was very profound.
Yeah.
The weird thing for me is it feels like people are sharing all that to try to make this point that that there's all this racism in the Trump administration and they hate Mexicans. It seems like the Trump administration's main point is that there's a big crisis at the border, and when I see that video, I go, man, there really is a crisis at the border. Like they have these facilities and they can only hold so many people. Like when I look at that, I go like, maybe a fence isn't such a bad idea. Like there's a ton of people there.
So you're saying you're a racist?
Like, I mean, it's not, like that's not my immediate reaction isn't like how racist all this is. Like the immigration equals racism argument drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And also the flipping illegal immigration for immigration. It's like the most disingenuous argument you can use.
Right. Well, it's not the most disingenuous.
It's pretty bad.
There's probably more like you're Hitler. Yeah, I do like the idea of Christians going on Twitter or social media and then just like wringing their hands and desperately wanting to be liked by the world. Like, why don't all these people like me? And then you kind of you look at Jesus and you're like, well,
yeah.
They didn't really like Jesus.
Yeah, he wasn't like the Johnny Depp of his time or anything. Well, I guess Johnny Depp's not a good example now. The Rock.
Yeah.
Who's like loved, who's universally loved.
So what was really funny about this article, Christians should be more like Jesus, who was loved by everybody and never divisive, is that Ben Shapiro graced us with a retweet on it. And like right away, we ended up with all these confused commenters.
Like, wait a minute, Jesus got crucified, man.
Because we've got our small little Twitter reach, and then you get Ben Shapiro's got, 5 million, 6 million followers or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever crazy number of followers he has.
Plus he mostly posts real news stories. I think we're probably the only satire site that he shares.
Yeah, I mean, he's often joking around and stuff on his Twitter, and so people are commenting like, Jesus was loved by everyone? Tell that to him as he suffered through his crucifixion. It's like, thank you.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you explaining the joke there. That was nice.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Christians jumping on the bandwagon of the fake Christian hashtag.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, let's just say it. Most Christians are homophobic bigots and blah, 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 blah. And that drives me crazy. It's like, do you really know like that many Christians that are just these like seething homophobe bigot?
Yeah.
Like, sure they exist, but it's like the crazy uncle that says the moon landing didn't happen or whatever. Like, it's just this like, it's this pocket that's not even worth probably talking about. And
yeah, we amplify it by giving that kind of thing so much attention when most people aren't like that.
And it just reeks of like begging to like be accepted by this culture. Like, yeah, I hate Christians too, guys. I'm not one of the bad ones like them. And then like,
yeah, and Twitter is it's like a small fraction of the population.
Yeah, Twitter is a bubble,
and it's such a bubble, and everybody tries to virtue signal and be I'm jumping on the hashtag fake Christian bandwagon. Yep. It's like, I hate those hashtags.
And just the idea that all these blue checks from Twitter are like going to lecture me on what real Christianity is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like, I don't.
No thanks. I don't need your opinion on that. I'll go listen to some Ravi Zacharias.
They're like, I think the Bible is false and Jesus didn't exist, but
Yeah.
You're not a good Christian. And you're like, oh, okay. Interesting.
Tell me more about what the Bible says.
Why don't you tell me more about Christian morality?
All right, shall we move on?
Our third story of the week. The women's soccer team sues to overturn unjust law of supply and demand. And this is in response to the U.S. women's soccer team has created some controversy over how much they're paid versus the men. It's the whole...
They won something, right? I don't follow sports.
They did something. They kicked a ball.
I don't know. I don't follow sports, and I only involuntarily follow soccer a bit because my stepson is obsessed with soccer.
So did he follow the women's team, or what kind of soccer does he follow?
Yeah, I don't think he follows women's.
And that's why women aren't making as much, because your stepson is a bigot.
Yeah, what a jerk.
Doesn't watch the women's soccer.
He plays FIFA like nonstop. I can never tell if he's watching soccer or if he's playing FIFA. That's how old I am. I'm like, are you watching soccer? Oh, that's a video game.
Oh, that's one of them.
Those aren't real people. That's one of them new video games. It looks so real.
Are you really shooting somebody in the face right now? Oh no, that's just one of them. That's one of them video games. Man, you are dating yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the women's soccer team was complaining about the pay gap, and it's funny because it's kind of a complex situation, and they might have a little bit of a point because they do have a much more winning record than the men, and the men make more than they do.
Oh,
but men's soccer worldwide brings in so much more money. It's like $4 billion versus 170 million.
Yeah, it's like, is that the measurement? Like, if you have like a softball team from the like Hanson Hills Trout Baptist Church, and they have like a 100% winning streak, should they get paid more than
they have a better record, man,
than a major league soccer team that doesn't do so well?
Are there church soccer teams?
I don't know. I just made that up.
This is
does that sound real? The Hanson Hills Trout.
Well, we know real Christians don't play soccer, so that's not true.
That's the devil's game.
It's the devil's game.
The Lord made arms for a reason, boy. You don't just leave your arms out of a game.
Yeah. Soccer's for women and Europeans. But I repeat myself.
We had the joke also that Megan, how do you say your last name? Rapinoe?
I've been saying Rapinoe.
Rapinoe. That she had this quote where she said that she's willing to have an open conversation, but then she kind of like said that basically she'd be willing to have an open conversation with anybody that already agreed with her and everything.
Yeah, that was wild.
That's so weird. She said she'd never talk to Trump, but she'd be willing to have an open conversation with somebody who, and then basically agreed with her and everything.
Yeah.
And
it was like who wants the same things we do, who agrees with the cause. It's like, oh, so you're only going to have an open conversation with someone who's exactly like you.
Yeah.
And so our article was, I think it was Ethan's. Megan Rapinoe says she's totally willing to have an open conversation with a perfect genetic and ideological clone of herself. And then we've got her sitting next to herself, talking to herself.
Yep.
That's what open civil conversation is all about.
Welcome to the spotlight, Megan Rapinoe. You've just got a Babylon Bee article. Well, she got a couple of them, I think.
Yeah. Now she's going to get famous.
Yep. All thanks to us.
You know what's crazy to me? So all this civil about these like controversies and all the conversations and the conversations about civility that come afterwards. It's just wild to me that like they might have a point in all of their complaining about the pay. There might be some bit of a point there, but then the point just gets totally drowned out in all this outrage and doubling down and tripling down and dividing everybody, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, on its face, the thing about these debates every time for me, because you can't both make the argument that like these are greedy corporations and they choose to spend more money on men, because if they're greedy, they would go with the cheapest option, and if women are willing to work and do the same, produce the same results for cheaper pay, then the greedy guys would go for that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where it always like, that's never addressed in these conversations where it gets like
about the gender,
the idea that there's just some evil guy in a dark closet somewhere and he's paying men more than women because he just is evil and he likes to he likes spending extra money on men because he hates women.
Yeah. I almost wonder if it's social media is kind of the root cause of a lot of this. I mean, I know that people have always made bad points and people have always been outraged.
It's true. Bad
since
points
the dawn of time,
do
but-
get to be seen more on social media.
And then if you're like living your life on Twitter, that's all you're seeing is these crazy talking
worst.
points. And I envy people like my dad who doesn't go on social media. And I mentioned a controversy like this, and he's like, "What? Like, who's that? I didn't even know the women had a soccer team." You're like, it's like there's this bliss that comes from not being in those places.
I have noticed that crapping on soccer gets us a lot of shares. Like there's one that where we said soccer controversy. I'm going to butcher this headline, but reveals that people get paid to play soccer.
Yeah, everybody's shocked.
Yeah, everybody's shocked. Wait, people get paid to play soccer?
We're paying money for this? Yeah, where do they get paid from? Is it is that like our taxes paying for this? Because now I have a whole other issue with it.
Yeah. The heck. All right, should we go to our main topic, Kyle?
Let's do it.
And now, the Babylon Bee's topic of the week.
And here we are with our main topic.
As
like a phlegm in my throat.
As we slowly melt to death
in this hot garage, I'm melting through and through.
My brain cells are slowly shutting down, and which is good because we're going to talk about something that doesn't really require that much thought: Christianity and politics.
Mm-hmm.
Something we can just breeze through.
Breeze through that.
No big deal.
It feels like I thought it'd be interesting to talk about this because it's kind of like taboo for Christians to talk about politics, right?
Yeah.
Or I feel like there's either, like in Christianity, there's either like you're like Ann Coulter Christian, who they mention every once in a while they're Christian, but then they mainly just own the libs all the time.
Yeah.
And then there's like the John MacArthur type guys, or like they pretty much never talk about politics as far as I know. Like it's just kind of you don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about the Bee, and the one thing I like about it is,
and it's made a lot of people mad.
Yeah, not that it makes people happy, but that we do go into politics, but we're also, I would say we aren't that jerk voice that's trying to just be snarky and mean. And there's a lot of those in the conservative side.
Right.
Yeah. So what do you think, Kyle? Is it wrong for Christians to talk politics?
I will come out and boldly state that we are not jerks. I will agree with that. Or we try not to be jerks anyway. Yeah, it is weird that there are so many Christian ministries and websites that I don't even know if it's weird. It's about what I'd expect, is that they don't want to alienate, so they stay away from the political stuff. And I kind of appreciate it, depending on the source.
Actually, I agree with it from the sense of that it's like a holy place. Church is like a place to like go and be with your family, be with Jesus, be with, just worship, and all that mundane political stuff. It's just not, it's below it. And on that sense, I agree.
Yeah, well, for the church, I was talking more like ministry websites, not necessarily the churches specifically. I 100% agree. Like a church, a guy from the pulpit, he should be preaching the gospel, and he shouldn't be really talking politics. Now, Christianity is always going to touch all aspects of life.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's politics or...
If you really believe Christianity is reality and not a thing that you just do on the side with your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then it's gonna touch everything. One thing that struck me, people complain a lot, the Babylon Bee does too much politics, or you should stay out of politics and just make jokes about worship leaders. And I was, I go back and I've been reading essays by like C.S. Lewis this week,
mm-hmm.
and, a bunch of them aren't even Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Like he assumes God, and he assumes the truth about the Bible and Christ.
Yeah.
In his, from the outset.
Yeah.
But what he's talking about is he's just talking about what are the implications of that for how the Christian lives out life in politics and lives out life in society. So I think it's interesting that, it's like, you guys should not talk about these things. Other people should talk about these things. It's like, well, who do you want to talk about these things? Who do we want to control that conversation?
Yeah, I'm a big Chesterton fan. Obviously, we've been through that many times, but
don't try to one up my Lewis mention with Chesterton.
Lewis he was a Chesterton fanboy.
Yeah,
but he was a journalist, so obviously he commented on things all the time of his day, and that's a thing that I do feel like that's the calling. He talked about things in a timeless way. Like, he believed in that eternal wisdom, that the Bible is built on this idea that there is a wisdom built into this world by its creator, That's why it's worth writing a book by all these different authors over like thousands of years, because we believe there's like a real story being told of mankind and a wisdom behind it all that's timeless. And I believe when you are, and we're just making dorky jokes, but but somebody like Chesterton, I think what was amazing that he did is he could write an article about something going on contemporary in his time, but he's actually making an eternal point, and that's why his articles are still so, a lot of them are so readable still today.
Yeah, I gotta admit I have some trouble reading Chesterton, but
yeah, it is. It is hard because certain stuff that he writes is so contemporary. It's like referring to things going on.
It was contemporary.
Yeah, it was at that time. Yeah.
Now it's retro.
That is the hardest part for me with Chesterton, and his style of writing is so different than what we're used to.
Yeah, I agree. Same thing with Lewis. When you'll read some of his radio addresses, and you won't know the names that he's talking about, or who he's responding to, or why, but the eternal truths that he might point to, still resonate today. And I think that's the unique thing that Christianity has to offer. Is like we believe in eternal truth. Yeah. And that's going to play out in politics much differently than someone who doesn't believe in eternal truth. Yeah,
that's another, not to be on Chesterton the whole time here, but he talks about how like people think that if you have a worldview that just is nice and tidy and it all kind of comes back on itself like a circle, like a nice clean circle. He says, who has a nice clean worldview is the madman, like in the insane asylum.
That was one of his big things, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so he talks about how, like, if you can see everything through the narrow, lens of like evolution or nature or something.
Rationality, I think was his.
Maybe it all fits together, but you've created a small little world that you live in. Like it's a tiny, and he says that the madman has the most tidy of all, like a tiny little world he lives in. And he says that he sees the symbol of Christianity as the cross. It's 4 arms are reaching out in all different directions. And there's a paradox at the center. That there's more mystery to it, and that there's that it's not nice and tidy. Like that there's mystery in God. And anyway, I'm like trying to preach here in the middle of a Babylon Bee podcast.
we need to put in the organ, like slowly coming in the background.
I just think it's interesting to think of that idea. And I feel like I see it all over our culture, the little narrow way of seeing things. Like they see everything through race. They see everything through pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think another thing that Christians need to think about with politics, and I hope this is what most of our satire does, is it's really important, I think, to not put trust in politics. Mm-hmm. Like I know some people are more politically involved and some less politically involved. Some are more politically aware, some are less politically aware, and that's fine. I think God uses all types. But I think sometimes we put so much trust in politics.
Yeah.
Like government is going to save us from this problem. And you'll bring up a problem like poverty or homelessness or, the immigration crisis. And our first question is, well, what are we going to do about it? And by we mean, what is the government going to do about it? And that's what we ask our politicians, like, what are you going to do to address this? Mm-hmm. And so I think the disconnect for me and a lot of people on both the left and the right is my question isn't like, what is this politician going to do? What is your party's answer to this? Mm-hmm. But it's like, that's not even my question. I've checked out before that point because I'm like, your party doesn't have the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I believe in almost every case, the answer is almost always just people doing the right thing. Government tends to kind of tag team off of that half the time. So, but I think that also what happens with politics is people create teams, us versus them.
Yeah.
And I think as a Christian, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be playing us versus them games. You're not supposed to be turning half the population of the United States into, some drooling idiot, people that are not worthy of respect or whatever.
Yeah.
Just that whole idea that if you voted this way, then you're not worth my time. It's like, sorry. Like I think everybody was created by the same God, and He loves them all.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's definitely infected the church, where you see people saying, how can evangelicals support Trump? And it's like, if you support Trump, you're not a true Christian. Mm-hmm. And people do it the other way. They did the same thing with Obama.
Yep. Yeah.
and I mean, you can make arguments about certain policies or certain issues, and there's obviously hot topic stuff like abortion, where you're like, well, there's like a literal massacre happening on our hands. You know? But sometimes you got to attribute that also to people's ignorance, and we've got to educate people on what exactly that is. without necessarily demonizing people and saying you're evil for voting for a Democrat.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's kind of I don't know if it's always missed, but I feel like we make a lot of jokes about how the idea is that like Christian politics are right wing, and
Yeah.
you know, I mean, right wing does happen to fall on the side of pro life and certain issues that we agree with, but in general, we find that it kind of funny that Christianity has a set of politics.
Yeah.
Like we make fun of that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big amount of the humor we get out of the right is you take Trump and you make him into a Jesus character, or you know, I think we had one where a missionary goes out and he's converting tribesmen to republicanism. He's putting the "Make America Great Again" hat on these tribesmen and stuff. Yeah, that's definitely like the feel you get a lot of times from Christians on the right.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I'm proud of that we do is that we do kind of sit back and we try to make light of it all, like the politics. People are so serious about it; it's their everything, and I think that's to me that's like our job, is to kind of like point out the humor as much as we can on both sides. But I think that also because there's so many jokes from one direction, we do tend to make jokes in the other direction more. But that we're finding that the absurdity in it all, and just trying to keep that reminder that, you know, most every generation has gotten most things wrong. So the fact that this one thinks they're so right about so many things, they're probably wrong on a lot of stuff too.
Yeah, one article we ran this week was "Nation Relieved as Politicians Too Busy Bickering to Push Their Terrible Ideas on the Country." And the image we used was Ocasio-Cortez and Pelosi, because they've been snipping at each other. But in the article, we all talk also about Trump, and he's firing tweets off at Ilhan Omar, and then she's firing tweets back at him, and they're, you know, and then all the news articles are like, watch this powerful clapback as Trump swings back on Twitter against, you know, and it's just
what a time to be alive.
So I like when an article like that can go, you know, you know what, you guys can fight.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just stop bugging me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's. I actually really sympathize with the opinion that we shouldn't be, or you know, that we don't need more politics.
Yeah, I get that.
To one extent, I completely agree. But I do appreciate that the Bee makes jokes in areas that most other people aren't touching. So I feel like that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I'll just finish with one other thing. I'll just mention, like, I was thinking about this a lot this week. I've been reading through the book of Acts, and
wait, you read your Bible?
No, Axe, AXE.
Oh, okay.
Axe Cop.
Oh, nice.
The comic book.
I thought you meant the body spray.
No, I've been reading through Acts, and it just amazes me how at the same time subversive and political the disciples were. You know, like they subvert the expectations of politics, because they're not going around saying, you guys need to support my candidate, or not that they necessarily had candidates back then, but they're not going around supporting particular policies for the nation, but they are going around saying, Caesar's not the true king, Jesus is the true king. You know, it's like that's one of the most political statements you can make. You know? So I like when we can touch on stuff like that.
All right,
so
I like that.
Yeah, we'll just conclude by saying...
we're not going to solve this, but...
We will go ahead and resolve all of the political squabbles in the nation right now by saying Jesus is king. So
yes.
Amen.
All right, we got some hate mail? Is it that time?
It's that time again.
We don't have good hate mail intro music, but we do have Dave saying, I really miss Adam Ford.
We'll get a jingle going.
Maybe it could just be I really miss Adam Ford and the little ding-a-ding-a-ding-ding.
We should auto-tune the I miss Adam
Ford. Yeah, there you go. I got to figure out how to do that.
I don't know how to do that either.
I really miss Adam Ford.
Okay, so.
Yes. Hate mail. What's the context here? It's another angry Trump. Every hate mail we get is angry about Trump.
We have done a lot of angry Trump hate mail. I do have a few from the other side. We'll get those read soon. Okay, so here's one. I don't remember what the context was, but they say this. President Trump is a great president.
Great is in all caps.
Great is in all caps. And your Christian,
quote unquote,
self-righteousness will walk you right off the cliff to the fiery gates. God raised an imperfect man to lead, just like he raised Moses. Who are you never-Trumpers to question God?
So we, last week, we did this great swashbuckling Dave.
Yeah.
He did this awesome read, because we kind of pre-recorded that he was going to do that, but he also, in the subscriber portion, we work in, if Dave sends me other takes that are great, I work those in and give them to the subscribers. And he did this amazing Taken one where he's like Liam Neeson.
Oh, yeah.
That might be worth doing, a Taken take on this one.
Yeah. You guys attacked President Trump, and I have a very particular set of skills.
Yeah.
And if you don't take it back, I will find you, and I will kill you.
The fiery gates. Yeah. So maybe we'll have him do that.
President Trump is a great president, and your Christian self-righteousness will walk you right off the cliff to the fiery gates. God raised an imperfect man to lead, just like he raised Moses. Who are you never-Trumpers to question God?
I like that every time we criticize Trump, the immediate comparison that he's drawn to is like King David.
Oh, it's King David.
Or Moses. I haven't heard Moses too much.
Yeah, I haven't heard Moses as much. It was Moses imperfect because he had a speech impediment or something, right?
Yeah, and he made mistakes, like leading everyone through
He killed a guy or something.
Oh, yeah. He killed someone.
That's not a big deal.
No big deal.
NBD.
NBD. So, yeah. Who are we
Yeah.
to question God?
Yeah, I had that, or like, or they all bring it back to Israel because he's pro-Israel. Then like you just have to, like, it's in the Bible. It's ingrained into the Bible that you have to support him without any criticism.
Yeah, or like, and then, you know, just, I know this is like a logical fallacy, but take this hate mail and apply it to, like, if we're in Nazi Germany. God raised up Hitler. He's an imperfect man.
Yeah, right. If he's in charge, God raised him up, right?
Who are you to question the great Adolf Hitler? Now, I'm not actually comparing Trump to Hitler, just to head that off before we get into angry emails. But
yeah.
I'm just pointing out your logical argument's not very sound there. So
also, I don't know that we're technically never Trumpers.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing too. People always say,
they'll immediately call you one if you don't praise Trump with every breath that you breathe.
I see that on Twitter all the time. Like, there's guys that, you know, say something and someone replies, you never Trumpers. You know, it's like, I don't know. I think that was
Could I be a maybe Trumper or something? Like,
that was a big divisive thing during the election. Is like, these people broke off and said, we are the never Trumpers. Mm-hmm. Most people didn't. You know, some people did. Yeah. But then if you criticize Trump, you're a never Trumper. And we've done articles in support of Trump, or at least making fun of the crazy criticisms that people give.
Yeah, totally.
Trump. So I don't think you can really read our website and go, you are a never Trumper. Mm-hmm. But most people who send this stuff don't read our website. So
it's true. And probably definitely don't listen to our podcast.
Yeah, I hope not.
Hope not.
One of these days we'll read a hate mail, and then we'll get a hate mail response.
Hate mail, and then it'll just be every week we're reading from the same guy.
Yeah. We do need to mention one other phenomenon is that we have now started getting fake hate mail.
Have we?
Yeah. Did you see this in the email?
Maybe.
We've started to get, you never check your emails either, but we've started to get like this like fake, like people trying to get on the podcast to get Dave to read their.
Oh yeah, because they want to be read by Dave.
But it's like very obvious because they hit
right at the end. They're like, "Love you guys."
Yeah. No, but they hit on all the tropes that we say. Oh. You know, it's like, oh, hey, you know, your newspaper is so bad.
Yeah.
Trump is amazing. Sent from my iPad.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I get what you're doing. So stop sending us fake hate mail. Only real hate mail will be read by Dave.
Yeah, it's kind of like bad movies. Like, they have to be made in utter sincerity. Otherwise, it's just not as good. You can't make a bad movie trying to be a bad movie. All right. So we are going to... we're going to move on to our subscriber portion now. We're going to talk about a few different things, including genetically engineered dinosaurs, food possessed by demons, and we're going to do a part I'm really excited about. We're going to read rejected headlines from the last week. We're going to go through some from the forum, some from our writers, ones that just weren't. They're still funny, but they just weren't quite there.
Yeah, and not all of these are necessarily rejected. Some of them are like maybe still in the works.
Yeah, they still might be used someday or whatever. It's just kind of like a fun It's a way to give them a little more life.
If you would like to subscribe and hear the remainder of the podcast, you can go to babylonb.com/plans, pick a plan at any level, and you will have access to the full podcast where we go on for another large chunk of time discussing a bunch of good stuff. So please do that. Yes.
All right. So, but with that, I'm Ethan Nicolle.
And I'm Kyle Mann.
Kyle and Ethan would like to thank Seth Dillon for paying the bills, Adam Ford for creating their job, the other writers for tirelessly pitching headlines, the subscribers, and you, the listener. Until next time, this is Dave DeAndrea, the voice of the Babylon Bee, reminding you to go forth and share the good news of essential oils.